Welcome to Canescast.
Franklin checks in, and he gets right in the game and into the end zone. Touchdown, Miami. And the Mario Cristobal era is off and running. Big fella gave Randall in motion. Jones in the pocket, gets hit as he throws. It's up for grabs, and it is picked off by Miami. And up the middle of Parrish. Parrish gets in the end zone for a touchdown.
What's going on, everyone? I'm Phil Van Pelt.
What's up, everyone? I'm Garrett Halsey.
And this is Canescast, and we are back for the second show. Had our inaugural breakthrough show last week. Appreciate everybody that has taken a look, dropped a like on it. And, it was a preview, a little bit of the season. And then the first week, obviously, we knew that was going to be a complete overmatch beatdown, and it was, hanging 70 points on Bethune. I feel a little bad for him, honestly. But it's a great way to start the season.
Could you imagine if we were sitting here right now and we just come off a loss? I mean, let's fantasize a little bit. Could you imagine you're the head coach of Miami Hurricanes and you lose to Bethune Cookman in the first game? So obviously we expected to win, right?
We did, but that would be, I don't know that we'd be having Canescast right now. I think it would be like if we lost to Bethune, you might have to just say, you know what, the season is kind of, because if you have the floor to lose to Bethune Cookman, upsets across the board. We've seen, Florida State when they were at their highest, drop that game to Georgia Tech. We've seen Clemson at their highest drop a game to Pitt. We saw Alabama last year drop that game to A&M. Obviously, A&M's a much bigger competition. But then we saw who A&M lost to last year in a couple of games and how their season went. So teams have moments where they'll drop to teams that they shouldn't. You have those bad games. It happens to pretty much every team in college football every year at least once. But yes, if you drop to a team like that, kind of shows. And my thing with that is, Cristobal's first game, you want to do that. I loved a lot of things he did. I think we would have won regardless if Manny was head coach. That it doesn't matter who was head coach in that game. But the discipline, the adjustments that we saw in the game, to me, are the things that were most impressive, because it's things I don't think we saw for years. My biggest beef with the Canes for so long with Diaz was it was the same mistakes again and again and again and again. It was penalties every game. And it never seemed to get better. It's being unprepared coming out of a bye week. We haven't seen this yet, but big games, it was always unprepared in big games. We just did not show up like we should have in big games. And again, it was just history constantly repeating itself. So I'm happy to see that at least they made adjustments. And by no means would Bethune have won. We still would have won by probably three touchdowns at least. But we've seen games before with Bethune that were a little chippier than they should have been. And I think that the defensive lapses that we saw would have been a lot more prevalent had we not have this coaching staff change. And that's what I'm excited about. It's nipping those things in the butt. Like, for instance, I was expecting to see the chain. When Cam Kitchens made that interception, I wanted to see the chain. But then he spiked the ball and he cost the team 15 yards, and you saw Cristobal lay into him. And that's what's great, because those self-harm penalties, Bethune, it didn't matter, right? We go ahead and score. But against A&M, that could matter with their home crowd.
Those are big penalties. And yeah. I agree, buddy. The things that were just so prevalent were the domination. The line looked like it was putting big holes for the running backs. It didn't matter the guy. Thad Franklin was, barreling people down, but he was making moves. He looked like he could run a truck through some holes.
Henry Parrish
looked great.
We didn't even see Knighton. We didn't have to see Knighton.
I was going to say, just about to say what the Rooster is going to look like when he's running around. So obviously we get to see the offense to kind of spread their toes a little, or their wings a little bit, get ready, get a few guys some experience. I thought that all looked great. The special teams, I think it's probably, goes without saying that if you watch that game at all, Smith could hit those things wide open. Those holes were wide open on those kickoff returns. That's what's so awesome to see again. It looked like we should dominate this team. We were dominating physically. There was no question. There was some times where, they got a play or two, and that's okay. I loved Jared Harrison Hunt chasing down that third down play. I mean, he's getting double teamed, and I talked about it in the opening show. That's what I'm liking to see. That kid's 300 pounds, and he's chasing down a receiver 30 yards down the field to get that tackle. And that's all right. A big play, but I love seeing that hustle and that play being finished with a guy that's that big and can run, right? I love seeing that athleticism on display. So it was a great game. Good way to start out the season. Much better than last year, right?
Well, I mean, obviously last year we opened with Bama. It was a little different. I think that, obviously unprepared. Are we ready for that yet? Probably not. I think we'll see at the end of the season if we open with Bama. I don't know that it would have been different than last year. But little things like the laps for me and that, the first possession when Bethune came down and got 3 points. I mean, you have them after penalties. You're in their head. They're undisciplined. You have them backed up, and then you let them go off and get that like 23-yard gain.
Right.
Stuff like that, yeah, you can get away with. And when you look back and you say, wow, in a game, a 60-minute game, there was 4 or 5 plays that really were like, hey, man, that can't happen. And it shouldn't happen. And it was lapses. The touchdown they scored was a breakdown. And but to me, I try to look at it in a weird way. I try to look at it like, what? That's a good thing because you can make mistakes like that. And it almost doesn't matter. Even I feel like I mean, Lou Headley didn't even see the field. We didn't punt at all, but it doesn't matter because you could theoretically have fumbled 3 times, thrown 4 picks, and we still probably would have won by double digits. That's how big of a talent discrepancy. So these things happening in these games, to me, even if it was close, you still like our odds. It's good because failure or mistakes make you get better. So those breakdowns against Bethune are good because then they give you something to work towards and focus on going into the next game and then eventually A&M because that's what the target's on, right? And when you talked about special teams, I want to point that out real quick. All I saw is a guy who can hit the hole when he turns on the burners better than I can remember. I know it was Bethune. Special teams coverage will be better in pretty much every game we play down the road.
Team. Right.
These guys are athletes, though, for Bethune, obviously. And some of them can move. That quarterback is an example. Their starter. But at the same time, to be able to hit that like that gives me faith that at any point there's a spark that can happen for our kick return game. And I love that.
And it wasn't just one. I mean, he could literally have scored, it looked like, on 3 or 4 of those kickoffs. That's what I'm liking to see.
He did,
every time. Right. So the domination wasn't just, oh gosh, he had one lane, it was wide open. No, it was every time they got a kickoff, that kid was darn near going to go to a touchdown. That's what I'm lucky to see. First game of the season, that's the way you want to have. You get your guys, get them to decompress a little bit. They've been hitting all their own guys all summer, all spring
ball and everything, yeah.
So, it's good to get another team out there in front of you. Get out there, get a win. This is the way it should look. This is the way you open up a team when you're Miami Hurricanes playing. Let's play big time college football, right?
It is. And I was saying you 49.5 point favorites and they covered, which is pretty cool. I will say too, Van Dyke was almost perfect, 13 of 16, 2 touchdowns. What did he throw for? 193 yards. And I will say, gives me confidence. Just again, not great competition, but Jake Garcia came in and moved the ball. I would have liked to see, more Ja'Cory Brown and even Peyton Matacha or whatever. I want to see him just because it's like these are times when these guys can play. I want to see them get more plug and play and stuff like that. God forbid it, if it can't, I shouldn't say God forbid. Who knows? Maybe they come out and light the world on fire. So, but it's cool to see, if they get an opportunity. My biggest takeaways though was the just road grading in the offensive, from the offensive line. The run blocking was already noticeably different, even against bad competition. Right. We didn't punt at all, and that's a point of emphasis that's just going to continue to get better and really spearhead, because we talk about we're always going to have skill players. That's going to spearhead things for just the future, and I cannot wait because that's the biggest tell how good we'll be. And if we can control the game on the ground and you have a quarterback like Van Dyke, our offense can compete with anybody's offense. So that's the key. Can they do that and give our defense time to rest, pin their ears back, and get after the quarterback? That's what I want to say.
I like, honestly, there's a lot to say we liked. When you win a game 70-13, what can you really pick apart? So, we had a fumble inside the 5. We were moving the ball down and they had a fumbled snap. So just cleaning up stuff like that. In the broadcast, you heard
a big one. That's a big one.
He's not under center very often. So that's something. Let's get those. That's coaching moments now. That's where I like having Cristobal. I loved his press conference This is the first time I felt like where I watched our coach talk, you gain something from talking to the man. He said
Mhm.
coaches talk all the time, and you're like, what did I learn? You have all this experience, and but what did you really say? You just said, oh yeah, we played hard. We tried hard. This, so if you sat and listened to his press conference, he talked about offensive line techniques. He really dug in pretty deep. So I like that he has coaching moments. He's going to have a week to prepare for a team that I think I watched a lot of that game here against Liberty, the team coming in Southern Miss, right?
Yep.
Uh, they have Frank Gore Jr. is their absolute whole offense, and right, who else can we be more prime to see come into our house than Frank Gore Jr., right? So Crystal Ball's ready. He's going to say, this is no joke. This kid's going to come in, run it down your throats if you guys want to not, be assignment sound and technique, savvy. These are things that I think are awesome. Let's get a tune up. We got another one, a tough test. Let's not get ourselves, this is a good player. Let's just call him a great player. I loved watching the game, watching him run. I mean, the whole thing, he runs, he passes. I think we're gonna have a couple, bruises after we play this kid. So uh that's what I love. I love a coaching staff that seems ready for this kind of let's work on it. Let's gain something from these experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's continuing. And you brought it up. The fumbled snap is the big thing that is for me. That's a moment where, of course, I'm mad because it's like, hey, that's an opportunity to strike right after the potential kick return wasn't, and then they fumbled the snap. But that's something that forces that to be a focus where it might not have been as big of a focus. So it's a mistake that happens, and you didn't burn, didn't give up, you didn't go the other way for 6, but it gives you an opportunity to focus on that, fix that problem, put a point of emphasis on that, where hopefully that doesn't happen. Because yeah, we've seen how players, how coaches, how refs, how these games can be called in big time moments and big time areas. We have been on the receiving end of bad calls in our lives, as far as from refs, and playing in Texas A&M in front of their 12th man, doing that whole thing. That is going to be a big time moment with a lot of noise, and our offense has to be able to handle it. I almost wish that one
Exactly.
of these games was on the road, one of these cakewalks that we could go into that was on the road, just because it's just the road environment.
Right.
Because it's 0 to 60, we're going to one of the biggest in the country right there, and we know our stadium can be just as loud and raucous as these stadiums can be, but they're not going to be for these two games. No stadium is. Alabama's not selling out for them to beat up on Rice. None of that stuff. It's these big games, and that's one of them. It's a big time name. We've seen us play in College Station before. We've seen how they do that whiteout or whatever they do. It's
I like to say, we'll touch on this hopefully that things are changing. They just expanded the playoffs to 12 teams between our last show now. So
love
putting big
that.
wins together is important right now. You know what I mean? Get out there. It's even more important to go out there and have a good showing against Texas A&M this year. Do our business the rest of the year if that happens. So, I like that things are changing for more fun, more concentration on the end of the season. We're working towards when you're having, the best fun games at the end of the year. Those should be the most exciting times. Christmas time, that's a whole month of the season that's basically kind of lost, where they could be playing 3 or 4, great games. So I'm excited for that. I still
The
think
season
that
ends at Thanksgiving.
exactly, and they don't play a really meaningful bowl game till the middle week of December,
Well,
right?
there's the conference championships, but you're right. Then it doesn't go till right before Christmas or right around Christmas. We start getting
Right.
bowl games, and then meaningful is another story. You're right.
Meaningful bowl games. So really start around Christmas time. So I like that this puts more focus on those times right at the end of the year, where again we're moving into a state of college football that's going to focus more on these guys and what they're really doing. They're out there to play big time college football. Hopefully, they'll still be athletes, student athletes too. I just think they will be more indoctrinated into their craft, which is as a fan, you want to see the best product. So if that's what we are watching, is the evolution of the great product, moving on to having more teams involved in the end of the year. having conferences shift around and where our team's really going to lie and end, that's all super compelling stuff to see. So I'm super excited for, week 1. We had a great victory. And I'm also excited for the way things are moving because, as we touched on in the first of the part of the show, that's the most exciting part is why we want to be a part of this discussion. As things move and shift, I'm excited to talk about them, and how things lie.
Yeah, I'm super excited about the expansion in general, though. The 12 team, to me, they could have made it, 8 teams, even where you had 5, every big time, Power 5 conference champion gets a bid. And then from there, you have 3 at large. So it gives the potential for these other schools to make it. But now I like it a lot because you have 12. I mean, the more the merrier as far as these other schools and group of 5 schools getting an opportunity, a real opportunity, and some other schools that are good schools that you might finish with a great record and you just have one bad loss, one slip up on there. Or maybe it's a good loss. Maybe it's 2 good losses, but you got a bunch of good wins too. Or, a bad loss and a good loss, something like that. But a 2-loss team having the opportunity to get in, because let's be real here, outside of seeing Cincinnati have a year like they did or things like that, we're still probably going to see majority of that 12 is going to be Power 5 schools. That who's the next best? And the cool thing is it'll really, really put the argument towards when it is one of those teams that wouldn't have made it in if it was a traditional 4 where the 9th seed makes it in and goes on a roll and wins. That's going to throw the whole thing on its head, because then that's going to really show people, hey, like, look at what we could have done before, and robbing teams of an opportunity, getting hot at the right time and everything else. That's what it is. It's being hot at the right time. You can afford a loss early in the season if you can rebound, but those end of the season losses are so damaging because everything is recency bias. So when you drop a game, unless you're Alabama, and you do whatever you want, you drop a game.
Exactly.
It's going to hurt you.
One team. I like to obviously, fantasize about days past. Had they played these types of systems in our, glory years, how many more big time games could we have won? Right. So it is good. It's good for the game. It's good for the game to have more big time competition. You're going to be talking about good teams playing at the end of the year instead of at the beginning of the year. They are basically throwing darts at a dartboard. They have no idea what team's good, which teams are bad. So really, the preseason rankings are for selling magazines and time to airplay, right? So now we're focusing on what's right. Let's get more games at the end of the season when they're important. Big time decisions at stake, right? These are big time things happening. There's a lot of money being spread around. And this is how they're going to move the sport into that, stratosphere. So I'm excited, man. Right?
There's still going to be schools that feel like they got screwed. It's going to be interesting that what
every
happens
year, of course. It's like, why we're 13, 14, 15. Why can't we get into, right? So yeah, there's always going to be somebody left out, but giving the real opportunity to play it on the field, where it's not in the 80s, where man, you have a bad call literally cost a team a national championship, And we won one where
that can still happen.
Nebraska goes for 2, and we win our next time. So I get, we gave a little up, but this is what's right. Play games on the field. Let these players that put so much into it decide who is really the national championship. Don't let it be to boosters and computers and nonsense. Let's put them, get a good group of football teams and find out who's best. That sounds like the best way to go to me.
Well, and you look at it, I mean, the FCS has done it for years. So, like Montana State, all these schools, Appalachian State before they moved up, North Dakota State, all these schools are, they've been at that level, and that it's happened for a long time. My question with it is the thing that excites me is what's this going to do to bowl games? Because bowl games exist for money because they're marketed with the Cheez-It Bowl, all these big brands, so they're designed to sell, are really kind of meaningless as far as they're designed to sell, right? It's money, it's marketing, it's selling the name, Cheez-It Bowls, the Frosted Flakes, all these big names. The Sun is Tony the Tiger, right? The Sun Bowl or whatever it was. You have all these names. It's just selling stuff. But for a player, why would you risk playing if you're going to go get drafted or potentially make a lot of money? Why would you risk an injury in a bowl game? That, I mean, it's cool. It's meaningful for the school. I can't say that it's not meaningful on some level, but unless we've seen it a lot recently, unless you're in a New Year's Six Bowl, excuse me, or playing in a bowl that can get you a New Year's Six Bowl into the college championship, then why would you risk playing? That's one of the things I actually kind of like about the NIL is a lot of these guys are seeing life-changing money before
Exactly.
the thing. So these guys that were going pro and chasing this dream a year early because they really got to get it, their family needs the money. I understand that completely. But that chasing and being told by guys go pro and then seeing the pros come in and we've dealt with that a lot. Guys going before they should have, chasing it because we have an
Right.
alumni program, unlike any other school, where the players come back, Legends Camp, and they see the fancy cars, see the fancy things. So then it's like, hey, I'm going to go get that myself. But you go, unless you're a surefire, I know I can go latest fourth round. That's kind of like if you're fourth rounder up, you're pretty sure you're going to have a roster spot. And that's worth it. That's worth all the weight in the world. If not, come back. Yeah, if you're Tyler Van Dyke this year, he's making money anyway. He's probably going to be a first pick or first round pick. And there's talk. I just saw CBS analysts talk about it by the end of it. He could be the first pick of the draft. If that happens, of course you got to go. If you think you're a surefire first round pick, of course you're going to go. But some come back. Andrew Luck did. Some guys go back. That's my thing, though. Will this keep people staying longer at school and saying, you know what, I can come back. Let me see if I have a better year, improve my draft status, get drafted a little higher because I'm still making money in college, which will help keep things, programs, and players in place longer. And they can build a longer reputation because they're not chasing that. And it hopefully will help players on the fringe get better into the pros. And
Exactly.
that's what's exciting.
And I 100% agree. We've said this. You and I have had these conversations for the last 10 or so years. I mean, really, we've been watching these games. You've been listening to me scream. They're making the game worse by thinking they're upholding some kind of this tradition, right? That's the system. This is just how it works.
Yeah.
If they would have gotten engaged and really understood what they were missing out on is actually making this game and product better by what you said. Keeping guys that are now no longer going to be cut on an NFL roster, and they're lucky to get on a team at halfway through the season through injuries. You know what I mean? They will stay and get some money that they deserve from institutions that are making profit off of their athletic prowess, right?
Yep.
They're trying to be students too, which is a great thing. But what they're really there to do is put on that uniform and represent these universities and make money. So allowing
not just make money,
players,
make millions and millions and millions of dollars.
And upholding this tradition to their detriment. So I'm saying seeing them allow this now is it's so freeing. We're really watching good college football, I believe, for the next few years because the kids are there. They're actually getting something out of their experience. They're going to play harder. They're going to go to the bowl games and put it on for a good film. You said, now, instead of these ridiculous named bowl games, we will have these are play-ins, to get to the national championship. They're going to expand 3 or 4 good extra games. Now these guys are going to skip the bowl games on good teams because they're going to play a meaningful game to close out their college careers instead of sitting on the bench, So I like they're now putting money in their pockets, which they should have, had done or allowed them to do from people that were giving it to them anyway, Where you, like you said, the bowl game started where they were allowed to give these guys things at the end of the year, right? They went to a bowl game because they could get a nice Walkman or CD players and all kinds of gifts, right? That's why they used to
How long
do
ago
their
does
system.
that feel? A Walkman. Yeah.
Right. What I'm saying, like they used to have something of value that they were allowed to give at the end of the year for some reason. The system allowed this small window of opportunity, but you had to go to a bowl.
Here's a gift bag.
That's why these teams made that. Now that's de-emphasized. You can tell that's why these kids don't play in these bowl games. They don't give a crap about a fancy bag. They got a car. Okay. So then the product's taken a step back because the system's really gone awry. Straightening things out. I love that it's taken time. I've maybe said about it, I felt a long time ago, but hey, they're doing the things now that are going to make sense. Keep kids on a campus and represent themselves, but allow them to benefit. A lot of these kids have families. Some of these kids are literally supporting.
Hey, it's why Trajan Bandy left. A lot of these guys.
Right. So now they can feed their kids while they're doing things that benefit other people, right? That's the beauty of this thing. Now, I love that's what we're looking at going forward. And again, we get to sell the best place in America to take part in all that. I love that, right? I love that we have big recruiting weekends where guys that weren't even considering Miami are now on campus for our games because I watched a couple things where that's the good stuff. That's where Miami's going to be coming back, right?
I
The
think
ball's
players are
rolling
always
in a positive
considering
direction.
Miami, but Miami comes down to the same thing. And I've listened to these guys talk about it with the Dolphins too. Some of these beat reporters down in South Florida that have said they've talked to guys that live in South Florida. A lot of guys live in South Florida. These players in the NFL across, doesn't matter where you play, they have homes in South Florida. They talk to guys and they've said, I think Omar Kelly put out a tweet like this talking about how he's spoken to players and a lot of guys want to come home. They want to play for the Dolphins. They want to do that, but they want him to get good, right? They want him to be in that position. This is a couple of years ago. Now we're on that cusp. I say obviously I'm a diehard Dolphins fan too, but we're in that cusp of, hey, back-to-back winning seasons, a lot of right moves. The roster is pretty good right now. It looks pretty stacked on paper. So, hey, do you take that step? That helps bring things in. Winning helps all. I love that our basketball team has had so much success under Larinaga, the most success it's ever had. Multiple Sweet 16s, just had an Elite Eight appearance, our first. Our women's basketball team has been solid. Our baseball team is historically solid as hell. So all these things are help, but the bottom line is Miami's a football school, and that's the nuts and bolts of the whole thing. So when we're better, everything is better. When the football team is, and the recommitment and everything is there, and when you're winning, players will continue to stay home. Not to mention the elite recruiting that we have, coaches across the board. But you're gonna want, you talk about NIL, it's just the cherry on top. Guys are gonna want to stay home. Miami's going to continue to kill it on the recruiting trail. There's no reason why we shouldn't be top 10 every year in that aspect. You're right. You're playing at home.
Exactly.
You're playing in paradise. That should be what it is. You should be always this. Miami will always be in that conversation with, Alabama and Georgia and LSU and all these schools that are in there, Florida, even Florida State, Clemson, whatever. Miami's always going to be there. And, it needs to stay consistent like that. I want to pivot a little bit because we're running a little short on time to this next game against Southern Miss. I think it's easy to say that we're going to win this game, but looking at the spread right now, we're 26.5-point favorites. So we were 49.5-point favorites against Bethune and won by what did we end up winning by? 57 points. It was 70 to 13.
57.
Yeah, yep. 57 points. Yep. So we won. So that's the question. We're going to win. Do you think that we cover the spread? Or do you think that we go over the spread, right? Just like we did against Bethune. I think we win by 40.
I do believe we cover the spread because we showed a good physical start. I believe we got things moving in a positive direction. I'm buying in. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm all about. We're going to see another step in our team's step to becoming a good football team, I believe. So there's going to be a good challenge. Again, there's a dynamic player coming in to our home who's going to be motivated. This is the kind of game that would, in our previous regimes, what we would have seen is a team pushed to the limit. This player would have come out and dominated and looked like he was better than anyone else on our team. That's what I do believe we are not going to see this weekend.
We still would have
I believe
won,
we will see
but
a sound, properly prepared football team. I do believe that's what we will see. I'm very excited to watch this game unfold.
I am too, and I think you're right. We're going to win. I agree that we would have seen potentially have a guy go nuts and all of a sudden some player has 200 yards and we win 37-21 and it's still double digits, but hey, it could have been worse. And if it's a better team across the board, they would have pushed us even harder. And a game that shouldn't be. What I want to see is a recommitment or continued emphasis on defense. I want to see those lapses, even against a better team, those lapses seal up. If at the end of the day you win 49-20, okay, that's still a big win. I've talked about it before. You've seen these games where Alabama's playing schools that are overmatched, and then at the end of it, it might even be tied going into the second. Then all of a sudden they win 49-12 or whatever, right? Those things happen even against Bama and these other schools. But I would like to see us potentially give up less points just because a point of emphasis of like, hey, we gave up 13 that we should not have because of defensive lapses. let's just give up less. Obviously, you want to pitch a shutout. I feel bad for these schools when they get beat like that to an extent. It's not like you're beating another big school like that. I think it's different when you beat the hell out of a small school. It's harder to watch. If we were beating A&M like that or Florida State, it doesn't bother me. But like I said, when it's a smaller school, even ACC competition doesn't bother me. But yeah, I'd like to see that. And I would like to see, I'd like to see the Rooster. I'd like to see Knighton get in. If they feel like he's ready, they want to put him in and everything else just to get some reps because I want to see him against Bama. I want to see a three-headed monster of Parrish, Knighton, and Franklin. And, obviously Don Chaney, we're not even talking about. I'd like to see him get some play too. So there's a lot of guys here. I want to see that. I want to see it start to click. And, just the commitment to the run game is great because I think we need to continue to commit to that to get that going in the right direction for A&M because that's got to be a point of emphasis. But I want to see Van Dyke throw it around the yard a little more. He didn't have to. He wasn't expected to. He didn't need to throw the ball at all if he didn't want to. But just as kind of warm up for A&M, that's all I'm saying. Just more things going in the right direction. That's what I want to see. Just more emphasis on some little things.
I would like to see Zion Nelson get in, and is he going to be able to hold down that real tough spot? Are we going to be able to hold the edge against a big time team? So I'd like to see him get on the field, look good. That's really all I can say other than I'd like to see the defense continue, like you said, making some progress. I think, we needed to get a little more pressure on a team like that, in my humble opinion. I think you touched on it. Other than that, I liked what I saw. Let's take the next step. Right.
Yeah, I agree. Just emphasize those things. And here's the thing though, too. I think something we got to remember is I don't know that you're going to put, and I think A&M's probably doing this a little similar. They're probably not showing too much on tape right now because why would you? You don't need to. On talent alone, you're going to go win these games. So the playbook is not really opening up. It's almost in a way kind of similar to preseason where the playbook is kind of staying, you're going to fluctuate a little. I think Southern Miss, we see a few more plays, a few more formations, but there's things that we've been working on. I'm sure that you're going to kind of keep close to the vest and not let out there. You want to unleash on A&M and these other schools to really, okay, I got to adjust. And as the playbook expands as the season goes on, then you're playing with a full deck right now. I think against Bethune, 25%, you don't even need that. So really, maybe a few more things, like I said, for momentum, for warm up. And those lapses. The only reason they scored were defensive lapses. So clean those up and play a better game. It'll never be perfect. There's always things to coach on, but that's what I want to see. I hope we see it. I appreciate all you guys spending time with us today on Canescast for our second show. We're excited to keep bringing you guys content every week, recaps and predictions. It's getting fun because next week's going to get heated. Next week after this, we'll be talking about whatever we did to Southern Miss. Hopefully no injuries. But here we go into College Station. I'm jacked. I'm ready for it. And with the Canescast, I'm Phil Van Pelt.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. I'm Garrett Halsey. It's all about the U, baby.
All about the U, guys. See you later.
See you later.
Proper technique now. Here's Van Dyke, play action. Plenty of time. Has a man open. Restrepo and catches the ball in Wildcat territory, and he's on the run. He's still going. Van Dyke in the gun. Hands off again to Parrish off the left side. Parrish makes a man miss and gets in the end zone.